Welcome to Cover Book Beat. I'm your host, Roger Nichols. Our guest today has triumphed over a tough early life and been transformed into a helping hand to others. Donna Rhodes is now a trained speaker, a published author, a certified life coach, and personality trainer. She's also written for newspapers, magazines, websites, and for story compilation books. Donna teaches Bible studies and is on the women's leadership team at her church. After several false starts, she's been happily married for 36 years to her husband, Denver. Together they have 8 children, 14 grandchildren, and 6 great-grandchildren. She says her happy places are her family, traveling, gourmet cooking, and playing with her dog, Penny. She's here today to discuss her book, How the Woman at the Well Became the Well Woman, which tells her story of triumph over tragedy. We're very pleased to welcome Donna Rhodes. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
First, I've got to congratulate you on the title, which is one of the cleverest I've seen in a long time. How long did it take you to come up with that?
Oh, it took me the entire amount of time it took me to write the book, about 12 years.
And I want to ask something about the introduction. I've not heard the term personality trainer. Can you tell me a little bit about what that is?
Sure. So I help people identify their personalities, and there are 4 different categories that I work with. So it's a popular personality, a powerful one, a peaceful one, and a perfect one.
Oh,
Perfect,
okay.
not meaning they're perfect, but they like things done in a certain way. And then I help them understand how they relate to themselves and the world around them according to who they are.
So you're helping people in multiple ways, I can tell.
Yes.
I have to say, you kind of hooked me early on with your analysis. In the introductory section, you say, and I quote, after researching the Bible further, I saw that wherever there's a woman and a well in the Bible, it usually culminates in a wedding. I had never made that connection before. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool when I made it too.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Excellent, excellent. You describe yourself as a sharer by nature. Was it easy to share some of these tougher times with readers?
Um, I don't think it was difficult. It was by the time I told my story, I had been through the transformation. And so I was excited. I was excited to be able to share such a beginning and then to know that life can be very different. And so by the time I was ready to write the book, it was more excitement.
Well, that's good because it doesn't feel, there's emotion there, but it doesn't feel destructive emotion. It's maybe positive, recalling things, processing them, dealing with them, and
Right.
it's extraordinary to have a glimpse into a life like yours for people who didn't live that life. So thank you for sharing that part of this. And like the woman at the well, for people who have not read the book or understand, this tells your story. You were taken away by the state, lived in foster care, bounced around, and felt like you were trapped and had to get out and got made some bad choices in marriages, but fortunately it wasn't 5 of them like the woman at the well. So uh,
Right.
you're evolving. Did you feel like you were in a trap when you were young?
I felt like I was out of control. I
Hmm.
didn't have any say. I didn't have a voice. I was being led where I didn't want to go by people who I didn't want to be with.
Hmm.
So it was just a total lack of control over anything that was happening in my life. I didn't want to be where I wanted to. I didn't understand why I couldn't go home. And at that time in the 50s and 60s, there was the conversations that we can have now is, I think, far more open. People are far more open and wanting to talk, and where kids were more just kind of not heard, seen but not heard.
Hmm.
Uh, And so that was a kind of a difficult time. And also, I had my family of origin was so dysfunctional that when I went into my foster home, which was middle America, there was such a gap there that I didn't know how to process it.
Yeah, and that comes through very very clearly in the book. You were one of, I believe, it was 10 children that were split up among various foster homes. And you had several different foster homes with very different kinds of people involved in that. And it seemed like you were constantly making adjustments or trying to.
Always,
Yeah. Yeah.
always for survival.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And at least one of them. Let me see. I take notes when I read the book, and I'm scrolling over through my notes here. You mentioned that it's a quote from your book. It says, "It seemed my entire existence revolved around Sue's moods, madness, and desire to shape me into her idea of a perfect child." This is one of your foster parents.
And the one that I spent 8 years with. So that was a long time. And she was how things looked was very important to her. And so on the outside, we looked kind of normal, but on the inside, there was so much chaos. She was definitely had personality disorder. She was bipolar, and he was a closet alcoholic. And so there was a lot going on between them before I ever entered the picture.
And
And they had never had children.
so they had no experience. And one thing about it, if you have a baby, you kind of develop along with the baby. But when you have a person who was already a person coming into your home, you haven't had that chance to grow with them. And you are concerned that it's going to disrupt your life. So you set down these harsh rules.
That and the abuse that I had come from. Years later, I was able to reconnect with my foster mother. And I asked her what she was told about us. And she said nothing, that she received a phone call. They had qualified for foster parenting. She had received a phone call that said two girls needed a home. It was an emergency. Would they take them? And they said yes. And then we were dropped off at their door. And that's as much as she knew. She didn't know my background or my family, the abuse that had happened to us, the neglect. She had no idea what I had been through. And then from that time of being dropped off at her door, then I was supposed to just try to adjust to them and this new life. And I was old enough. My little sister came with me. She was 3, and she forgot, and she was able to adjust to them, and she spent her whole time there. She grew up there, but I was not. And I was 7, and I remembered my family. I remembered my mother, and I that desire to go home
Mm-hmm.
was always there.
And after some more bouncing around, you looked at marriage as an escape.
Yes, marriage not just as an escape, but survival,
Mm-hmm.
um, and just never having felt loved, or that I was worthy of love. And so when a man paid me attention and showed me affection and a desire, I didn't know how to process that either, because I didn't have that foundation. And so I misunderstood what the relationship, how it should be developing. It was too fast. And I didn't get to know the things that I should have known about a person before. I kind of was like an empty hole. It was when somebody showed me the affection, I was like,
Yeah.
and that kept me from being able to see the things that I needed to see.
And as it turns out, there was some abuse involved as well there too. I'm sorry to say.
Yes,
Yeah,
there was
indeed.
quite a bit.
I think. I mean, you've made some tough choices, not always the right ones. I think the line that really spoke to me is when you said, "The loneliness inside me spoke louder than my common sense."
Yes.
If you never had affection,
Boy, that's so true.
yeah, yeah. And then I want to talk about the transformation that came about
Mhm.
from an unusual source, actually. Somebody suggested you to listen to a radio program.
Yes, and I did. And actually, I first tried to go to a church. In my foster home, we were taken to church. So it was
Mhm.
kind of a natural thing when I got into a bind. I tried to go to church, but it was in the 70s. And kind of perfection was how church, like you came in like everything was okay. And how are you? Fine, fine. And no one ever got down to the nitty gritty. And I definitely, by the time I was looking for help, was nitty gritty. And I shared a little bit with the pastor about what was going on. And he said, well, when you get rid of that boyfriend and stop smoking and you can come back. And I didn't know how to do any of that. It's why I was there. So I kind of got discouraged. But then somebody told me about this program that she listened to that helped her. And I turned the radio on and listened. And it seemed exactly what I needed. It was about parenting and the role of a mother in a home and just exactly what I was looking for. And so I continued to listen and I got connected to that group, but unfortunately, it ended up being a cult. And
Mhm.
I stayed there for 20 years.
Yeah, and it's kind of odd that you felt yourself trapped in one way, and you were actually in a larger prison for a while. I mean, this is the Garner Ted Armstrong's church. This is what was so
Yes,
bizarre was you had an abusive husband,
yes,
and the church did not believe in divorce, but he decided that because he was abusive, you could get divorced. And
yes.
then it was up to him to decide whether you could remarry. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, sounds pretty cult-like. And ultimately, that's what it turned out to
It
be.
was. It was. Yes.
But the thing that came out of that is this amazing contact with Denver. And
Yes.
he and you and he together have had this wonderful life together. How was that felt after all those years?
Oh, such a blessing. Gratitude to have somebody to really love you the way that God intended for you to be loved. And I think that's with Denver, his relationship with the Lord is what has given him the ability to love me and to have the kind of patience that really he needed to have in order to support me so that I could be the person that God meant me to be. So in the cult is where I met Denver. So, I said my next book is going to be I met him and him in a cult. And and so, God can use anybody, any place, anywhere. And the fact that is what came out of that, it was the greatest gift. And yeah, it's been very, very special marriage.
Indeed. So, was there any particular event or series of events that caused you to say, I need to give back and start doing this teaching and helping people?
Definitely, as I shared my story with women, my friends and so forth, and they would say, you need to write a book, you need to. And after seeing how my story helped, it encouraged me. Maybe that is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm a sharer by nature. When I find something and it improves your life, a couple of years ago, I found the greatest potato peeler ever invented. And I was so excited about it. Every person I know got it for Christmas. It's like, I know this is kind of a silly gift, but let me tell you, this will peel your potatoes like never before. And so when I find something and it improves or helps, or if it's your laundry, your cooking, your child rearing, your personality, I love sharing it. And so when all of this happened in my life, it was like, why not do what you love to do? Share your story. And so it feels like it was my gift. And different people have different gifts. You know, I'm not athletic and I can't sing. And but I think we each have something to give to the world. And I think what I had to give was the miracle of the transformation from where I started from, through all that God brought me through, and get to the other side, and to share hope, to share don't give up, to share the lessons that I learned, so maybe somebody else won't have to go down that same road, and the triumphs as well, because there are lessons in that as well.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. When you do these talks, do women come up to you and say, "I've been having the problem. Can you help me?" Does that happen?
Yes, a lot, a lot. And when I've spoken at conferences, when I have had my life coaching that I do with women, very often it's because they read the book or heard my story and know I've been there. And so they know that I'm not just speaking about it from book knowledge, that, you know, when heart speaks to heart, something happens.
Well, I think something very tremendous has happened with this book. Um, you've been generous with your time, but I want to get in some information. If people are listening to this and they say, "Hey, I want to find out more," where can they get the book, and how can they find out more about you?
Okay, so the book is on Amazon, and it is both in paper and in electronic. And also, I have a website, and it's onewellwoman.com. So onewellwoman.com. There, I have the first chapter of the book. I have a little video on the front page that you can watch, that tells you a little bit about me, and you can learn how to get in contact with me. And so that's my information.
I'm glad to have that, and think that this will probably get a few phone calls to you, or connections,
Oh,
as it were. Our guest this
very
morning has
good.
been Donna Rhodes. The book is How the Woman at the Well Became the Well Woman. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed it.